Yeah. Okay, look, as a member of the Business Committee, I was the one who asked for this debate to take place. I've been asking for it since several weeks before the summer recess. It was refused before the summer, and it was refused up until now, and finally the Minister has deemed to allow a debate, but has left before the vast majority of the opposition spokespeople on housing even had a chance to respond to his speech. The reason I asked for this debate is because I think some of us have some things to impart to the Minister about just how dire the housing situation is out there. But again and again and again, the Senior Minister leaves. And this isn't the first time he's done this, and leaves a Junior Minister who's not responsible for this area here. And I'm just sick of it, right? And the contempt is not really even for the opposition spokespeople, it's for the people who are suffering, and I mean really, really suffering, from the housing crisis. And I mean, this came to me today, actually. I'll just read it out. This is from Nina in Tipperary. My name is, it's a woman, I won't mention the name, and my husband, 2 children and I are homeless in Nina. We've been told by the council that I earn too much to receive any help. As such, we are staying in a tent. As winter approaches, I'm very worried for my children, who are both autistic, and how we will manage. We've been applying for houses with no luck. There isn't very many available, and landlords, realtors don't seem to want to give us a home. I'm emailing you to see if there's anything you could do to help us. Okay, she's contacting a TD in Dunleary about this. But the Minister couldn't be bothered to stay and listen to her story. In my own area, I'm speaking for Magda, who's in a 2-bedroom house. She's been overholding because she got a notice to quit on grounds of sale since the 2nd of August. She lives in a council-built estate where the house is on sale, and the house, because it's a corner house, 3 other houses could be built on that if the government stepped in and bought it. Instead of, who will buy it? Property investors, almost certainly, at the prices that it's going at. It certainly won't be the people affected by the housing crisis, because it's being sold for €650,000. Right? You'd need an after-tax income of well over €100,000 to even have a prayer of buying that house. Right? But this is a former council estate, you could build 4 houses on that site and prevent Magda from being evicted. I'm speaking for Debbie, who's on the housing list since 2009, nearly 14 years. She's 3 children facing an eviction on grounds of sale, and we've asked the council, on Debbie's behalf, to buy that house. And the Minister says, and we've been saying this to the Minister for 4 years, on foot of, in particular, the St Helens Court debacle, where, again, vulture funds bought that multi-unit apartment complex and have spent 4 years trying to evict all the tenants. They're still there, but still, the local authorities have not stepped in and bought it, and they still have the Damocles sword hanging over their head. But in the case of Debbie, we've asked the council to buy, and the Minister says, oh, well, we've now instructed, the request we've been making for a long time, local authorities to buy houses where people are facing eviction on foot of, notice to quit on grounds of sale. Okay, but that's not true what the Minister just said. That's not what's happening. Because, just to read it out again, I got an email today from a land lady who contacted Dunleary Rathdown County Council in July and asked them, because she didn't want to evict her HAP tenant, because she's a decent person, she has to sell, she's an accidental landlady, but she has to sell, but she can't sell because she won't put a HAP tenant into homelessness, because that's where that HAP tenant. So she contacts the council and says, And this is after the Minister said he instructed local authorities to buy in situations like this, and asked Dún Laoghaire would they do it, and they said, sorry, we don't do it. We do not sell, or we do not buy where there's tenants in situ. Now this is after the Minister said he had informed councils to do this. Right? And when I actually look at the circular, it is clear that it's much more qualified and caveated than the Minister has implied today when I asked him about it. Because it says if resources allow, if the council this, if there should be no ifs or buts. No ifs or buts. Right? We need a firm instruction to local authorities that where people are being evicted into homelessness, that they will step in and buy those properties. That just has to happen, because that is how you will stop the record numbers of people who are now homeless. You look at where that spike is coming from. These are families, most of them working families, who have been evicted for no fault at all other than landlords selling up to capitalise on high prices, or accidental landlords who have no choice, and the government won't step in and buy these properties. It's crazy. But I would go further, right? And I really want to get this out there as a serious debate to the Minister, is we should be going further than that. We have $5 billion we've just put into the rainy day fund, right? Now, this is the rainy day when it comes to the housing crisis. There are 96,000 HAPS, RAS and rent allowance properties out there. 96,000. We should write to every single one of those owners of those properties and say, are you interested in selling to the state? Because it is costing the state and every taxpayer in this country far more money to pay them RAS, HAPS and leasing, rent allowance and so on than it would be if the state owned that property. That would be immediate saving to the state, and it would secure the future housing needs of all the people in those arrangements. And let's remember, every single one of the people in those arrangements have been let down by the state because they're all on housing lists, because that's the only way you can get HAPS, RAS, leasing or rent allowance, if you're on a housing list. So the state has let you down. You're on it for 15 years or 20 years, right? That should be done immediately. Now, that we could make a serious and immediate impact, practical impact in the here and now if we do that. We should also do it with all the build-to-rent apartments that are being completed at the moment. Why on earth would we let international investment funds, like the pension fund of the arms dealer British Aerospace, buy up these properties, as we discover out in Swords, and all sorts of other international wealth asset management operations, the global rich investing in Irish property to make a fortune? Is it better they own the property or that the state owns the property? Right? And that wouldn't be crowding out first-time buyers, because first-time buyers couldn't afford any of this. But we could, the state could buy the property with the money in the rainy day fund, and they could designate some of it for affordable purchase housing and the rest of it for social housing. Right? Because if we don't do it, what is happening is British Aerospace, or God knows who else, whatever investment fund, lease it back at extortionate rates to the local authorities, and we pay for it anyway. This is insanity. It's flippin' insanity, and you continue to allow it to persist. And people end homelessness as a result. And lastly, the income thresholds. Back to the woman in Nina. I earn too much to get social housing support, so I'm living in a tent with my family and my kids. Right? I've raised a case for a year of a woman who's in homeless accommodation now for 4 years, with her kids, who's working for a state agency that looks after vulnerable children. But she's over the threshold, so she's not entitled to social housing support. And this is happening. This is a massive stealth cut. The numbers of households, entire households in this country, who 10 years ago were entitled to social housing support was 47%. It's now down to 30%. This is a massive cut, week in, week out, in the supports the state is giving to people who can't afford to buy or rent on the open market, which is a bigger number than ever it's been. So at a time we need this support more than ever, we are slashing it from people and driving them into utterly desperate situations. And the Minister still will not tell us why won't he raise the income thresholds. Why not? It's absolutely outrageous. So when he is going to do it? I've been looking for an answer for 5 years on that question.
Thank you, Deputy.
Successive ministers, still no answer, but people suffer as a result.